Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for the delay. Um, as you all know, I did a test run earlier, and I'm back. And as you can see, you can actually see me this particular time. Certain times I will show myself, and other times, depending on how I feel, I won't. But I felt it was important for me to come back. And please, as soon as you enter, please hit the like button. I truly do appreciate that. I again apologize for the lateness, but I just felt it was very imperative that I did this live stream. I don't feel that I would have done it justice to do a regular upload, just a pre-recorded upload. To me, it would not have done it justice, even though I probably would have probably gotten more views that way, but it's not. Sometimes it's just not about that, and a lot of times it just isn't. You just have to do what feels right. And as we know, yesterday was Juneteenth. It has been over 150 years since this practice has taken place. I appreciate the like, but it is amazing how it seems like this particular year, due to all the protests and everything. Hey, Mr. Derek White, how's everything? Glad to see that you made it back. It's amazing how so many so-called, um, I'll just say, other nations have tried to jump on the bandwagon, and now they decide that, oh, Black Lives Matter. Well, listen, I've been living Black Lives Matter for at least 50 years. Okay, so Black lives should always matter. It should have nothing to do with not just police brutality, not just with the constant bombardment of racism throughout these United States and, for that matter, around the world, but we have to live that first in our households and then as we go out in public. And to see these other people all of a sudden cry Black Lives Matter, and yeah, you'll see a few of them march with us. In fact, more than a few. When you go to these marches, it is about half white Americans, 20% might be black men, and the rest are black women, and the others are the homosexuals and others. And as you see, they continue to slap us in the face with the DACA thing that just came through. And listen, I'm not saying that those individuals don't deserve rights, but it's amazing how they talk about that during a time where our people are getting killed like crazy out in these streets. But yet, still, it seems like everybody else can piggyback off of our civil rights movement, but the very people whose civil rights was supposed to be all about. I mean, it is more than interesting to find out that the LGBTQ community can have their rights. Oh, we won't fire them because of their sexual preference. And listen, this is the United States of America, you know, but for them to have their rights reaffirmed and not have our rights taken care of as a people is an absolute slap in the face. It just, it doesn't even shock me. And that's the sad part, the fact that a lot of us have become numb to it, but I haven't become numb to it to the fact that I don't plan on doing anything about it, or I'm just going to be like, oh man, well, that's just the way it is. That's not how we're supposed to do things. And that is not how I will ever do things. So we have to continue to put the pressure on. And I'm very glad to see the younger generation carrying on these protests. They are very much needed. And before I move on with the Juneteenth reparations and the fake, and let's face it, they are fake. They're giving us window dressing. I mean, we already know that Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben's they've been offensive for years, and all of a sudden you're going to wait till 2020 to do something about it. I mean, again, a slap faces. But I don't know how many individuals are from New York. I'm not sure. I believe you are, right, Derek? I think you're from New York, and if so, I don't know if you had heard Governor Cuomo's press conference. Hey, Jasmine Virgo, how you doing? Um, a few days back. In fact, it was about a week ago. Oh, you're from Texas. Okay, Jasmine, you're from Brooklyn. All right. What part of Brooklyn? Bed-Stuy, um, Brownsville, Red Hook. There's so many. Canarsie. There's just so many parts of Brooklyn. It's crazy. In fact, I used to live out there. Hey, hey, Lady Tia's T-shirts and designs. How you doing? I saw you earlier in Brother Willie D's live stream. Oh, East New York. Oh man, yeah, I've spent several times out there in East New York, no question about it. But I don't know if you had a chance to see Governor Cuomo last week. He was so arrogant. I really, if you get a chance, try and look at that. He had the nerve to tell the protesters here, oh, well, you guys can stop. You've won. You've got everything that you asked for as far as the police reforms and things of that nature. Well, first of all, Governor Cuomo, number one, you do not get to tell us how and when to protest. See, again, that is the problem. And it doesn't matter whether it is the left wing or the right wing. And you've heard me say this on several occasions, right wing or left wing, it is the same filthy bird. It does not matter. Governor Cuomo sounded so much like the orange faced one in the White House. And if you saw that rally, and I could only stomach about 5 minutes of that, that was an absolute disgrace. And it's so funny to see all these people without masks. Yes, that is correct. And I actually was going to get to that. Thank you, Lady Tia. Yes, DL Hewley, that's, yeah, he has COVID-19 and he's in quarantine. In fact, I believe he was in Memphis. He was doing his stand-up routine and he collapsed. Now, they said a few hours ago that he is doing well. Well, I don't know how well he's doing if he has COVID, but obviously, if he was able to make that statement, hopefully he's not on a ventilator because that would be actually the most important thing. Yeah, well, yeah, native Gadite. A lot of now, here's the thing: a lot of people they claim to say don't have symptoms. A lot of people they say don't have the symptoms, but they actually have COVID. In fact, they say about 40% of the people may actually have the COVID 19 virus, but not have the symptoms themselves. But there's so much that none of us know about this. I mean, I there's so much more to this than they're ever going to tell us. So, I mean, let's face it. That's why you just try to take every precaution that you possibly can. Yeah, I no, I believe that. He probably doesn't have any symptoms. And here's the thing that a lot of people they don't want to tell you, but when people do pass away, Yeah, the mask is very uncomfortable, no question about it. But I mean, to be honest, it's pretty much necessary because you don't know who has it. You don't know who you might. I mean, you basically they say social distancing 6 feet. I need 10. Okay, I can do social distancing easy because I'm gonna be honest. I really don't like to be around a lot of people as it is. To be quite honest, yeah, yeah. I have a black one also, a black ninja. I almost look like a ninja too with mine, but I also think that it's also an excuse to keep us from doing certain things. But that being said, yeah, I hear you, man. Shoot, I tell you what, give me 40 acres, but that's that'll be coming up later. But I do. I would definitely send prayers and positive thoughts to DL Hewley. Obviously, I don't want anything to happen to him. I mean, even though there are certain things, obviously, that I don't agree with that has come out of his mouth, but that has nothing to do with wanting any harm to become him. And I definitely will send prayers and positive thoughts to Mr. Hewley. But going back to Governor Cuomo, I mean the downright arrogance of that man for him to say, "Well, you've gotten what you've asked for. There's no need to protest." How dare you tell us that there's no need to protest? I mean, have you not seen what's been going on in the street? Oh, that's right. You don't give a damn. But people will flock to Cuomo thinking that he's so great. Well, before I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that. Thank you so much. Before you start um, giving Cuomo all these props, keep in mind the hundreds of people, the thousands of people who died in the nursing homes. And that is directly due to Governor Cuomo telling people that they had to take those people in and take them into the nursing homes. Oh, listen, that's Trump being Trump, Lady Tia. I expect nothing more and nothing less out of him. You know, in baseball back in the day, there used to be a term, Manny being Manny, and that was referring to the slugger from the Boston Red Sox and later the LA Dodgers. He actually got his start with the Cleveland Indians, Manny Ramirez, who was a great hitter. Now he was roided up just like everybody, about 80% of the Major League Baseball, but he was a great hitter. And he wasn't just a great home run hitter, but he hit for high averages as well. But he definitely marched to the beat of a different drummer. And that is why the term Manny being Manny came to fruition. Well, that's the same way the orange face one is as far as his actions. Of course, anything that is popular, he's going to take some type of credit or attempt to take some type of credit for it. And listen, you're right, Derek. He can't help himself. He's he's disrespectful. I mean, him being disrespectful is like us brushing our teeth. I mean, that's who he is. That's what he is, and I expect nothing less of that guy. Listen, wake me up when he decides to have any type of manners and take any type of responsibility. He's like the 5-year-old who gets caught eating the cookie from the cookie jar and then has the nerve to look at you in the eye and say, "I didn't do it." That's who he is. But I tell you, and I keep saying it, if people could just ignore him for a week, he wouldn't know what to do with himself. I do believe that he would probably commit suicide because he couldn't deal with people not talking about him. He has to be the center of attention no matter what it is. I mean, Donald Trump has as much to do with Juneteenth as Minister Farrakhan has to do with making a pork chop sandwich. He has absolutely nothing to do with our people as far as anything positive. Remember, this is the same guy who still believes that the innocent five are guilty. And no, I do not call him them the Central Park Five. They are the innocent five, the exonerated five. They have. I certainly will tell her that you said hello, Jasmine Virgo. I appreciate that. But going back to Cuomo, he's just as bad. See, they're all wolves in sheep's clothing. And Malcolm X, it is amazing how much more true his words ring now here in 2020 than back when he was at the forefront of the original civil rights movements. Oh, please, Terry Crews. I see part of our problem, and I'm not saying you in particular because I know that. Listen, we don't do that here, but a lot of people look to these so-called black celebrities, and let's face it, Terry Crews is about like he's more of a B-list actor. He's not an A-list, but I don't expect anything less from him either, man. Because let's face it, Terry Crews lost his manhood the same time Drag Race and those guys came out, man. He hasn't been a masculine dude since about probably about 1995 or something, man. When he was playing football. I mean, I'm so sick of guys like Terry Crews and yeah, Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X. In fact, Muhammad Ali, before he passed away, he even said that the biggest mistake that he ever made was falling out with Malcolm X when because he had joined the nation like a year before Malcolm left it. And you know what? If you get a chance, please Google that because at one time they were extremely close. But then obviously when Malcolm left the Nation of Islam in late 63, early 64, Ali still was a very staunch follower of Minister Elijah Muhammad. What do I think about blacks being police officers? You know what? There is a very fine line with that. But and I have a unique take on it because I was in the, for those who don't know, and I really don't talk about it too much, I was in the military. I was in the Marines. In fact, I am a veteran of Desert Storm. So I know how it feels to wear a certain uniform and be looked at as a sellout, as an Uncle Tom. And it's crazy because trust me, some of them, and that's why it is called militant. Some of the most militant people are actually in the military, no question about it, where they have maintained their integrity, but still did what they had to do. In fact, I used to be, when I was younger, I was like, man, I'd never join. And I found myself, because I was in the reserves, I joined it to try and get extra money for college. And I ended up going to Desert Storm. But unfortunately, a lot of these black cops are so disgusting. They want to show out because they feed into that BS. Oh, there's no such thing as black and white. All I see is blue. Well, that didn't work out too well for the cop in Minneapolis, the black cop in Minneapolis that killed that white woman. I mean, he got 12 and a half. I'm shocked he didn't get more than that, but I guess he only got 12 and a half because he was a cop. Believe me, if he was a regular, so-called regular black person, he probably wouldn't have survived in jail. In fact, I'm pretty sure that he's going through it right now. That's his name, Muhammad Noor. I couldn't think of his name. I remember he had killed the white woman there in Minneapolis. But it is funny how he got some time, but if you notice, um, Philandro Castile's killer didn't get that. Oh no, no, no! I ironically I felt the same way as I feel now. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I never. I mean, the flag is just what it is. It's just it's cloth. All it is cloth. I have no great feelings about this flag. I mean, I respect our people. When I put, I didn't think of myself as, oh, I'm a big time. I love America. God bless the USA. I didn't think of that. I thought of, I have a job to do. My thing when I was in Desert Storm was I wasn't trying to carry on what George Bush wanted. My thing was I wanted to come back as close to the same way that I left. I want to come back the same way. That's how I felt about it. It wasn't about, oh wow, I'm going up against the forces of evil. Yeah, right. The forces of evil are right here. I mean, we see the forces of evil. See, yeah, I did make an adjustment. Jasmine, I appreciate that. Yeah, I guess it took a while for it to take, but I'm glad that everybody can hear me quite well, and I'm glad that you guys took the time out to even be with me at this time of night. I know, you could be doing anything else, especially on a Saturday night. I was supposed to have done this yesterday, but I had to wait for everything to um, be upgraded. I mean, I just got a new device, a new computer, and I had to put everything together. It takes a while for everything to be put in place, and now it's coming to fruition. I'll probably be doing this a lot more this way because a lot of time I was just using my phone. But and I'm really I like this. I really do. But I appreciate that question. Now, before we can even worry, and Juneteenth was wonderful, no question about it. And it's beautiful to see, especially the younger people. And it's amazing how many children are doing so much in the community. A lot of people like to complain about the youth, the younger people. Well, you should. You really should do that, Lady Tia. You should definitely um, do your thing on YouTube and definitely voice your opinion because you have a voice and you need to be heard. No question about it. Looking like a news. Oh God, nah, not me. Nah, I mean, I like to put on a suit every once in a while, but I can't do that um, news copter stuff or be out there, especially with this COVID. I could see some clown. Plus, I'll probably get fired because the first um, non-black person that goes out of their way and calls me out my name or says something stupid or tries to spit on me, I might be doing 25 to life. I'm just saying. So I don't think I would be able to do that news reporter thing. But going back to what I was saying, it really is wonderful to see the younger generation, and it's the little ones too. People like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. They're doing a lot. I wouldn't know what jail discipline different from military discipline. I see. I don't know what jail discipline is, so I can't. I don't know if I can truly answer that question because I don't know what jail discipline is. I mean, I do know military discipline, and not everyone has it. And there are certain things that I don't have it anymore, but there are certain things that will never leave you. I would like to think I was somewhat disciplined before the military, but there are certain things that I did pick up from the military that have carried over. And you know what? The military, listen, I will not, I wouldn't encourage our people to join the military, but if you are lacking a type of structure and you are lacking discipline, it is not a terrible thing, but you do not want to go around wartime. I mean, but no, you're not speaking. Listen, I would never, there's no such thing as speaking out of turn. There's no such thing. I mean, the only thing that I wouldn't tolerate is disrespect, and I'm not worried about that, especially with us. I mean, come on. You don't ever have to worry about speaking out of turn. But there's no doubt the one thing that is not talked about when it comes to um, our marching, when it comes to wanting to have certain amount of police reform, and I get it. Police reform is definitely, they should defund the police. In fact, we should be able to police ourselves. Hello, Miss King. How are you? It's good to see you in the chat. I definitely appreciate you. But no one, it seems like, and I saw the elder speak on it earlier this evening. But no one is talking about no one's talking about reparations, and you can't talk about Juneteenth, about the so-called freeing or free-ish part of slavery, and not talk about reparations because that has been owed to us for over 150 years. It is absolutely disgraceful. Um, yeah, there are a lot. Listen, there are more women out there than black men out there when it comes to the movements. It's somewhat disheartening when it comes to that. But also, what what makes you sick is there are certain women out there. Listen, I don't want to see, if I see one more person get on their knees with a cop or twerk with the cops or step with the cops and do all types of dancing and gyrating and all types of garbage. I mean, I tell you, if I see that, I might go out there myself and slap the crap out of them. I'm sick of that. It is embarrassing. It is absolutely embarrassing. I tell you what, you can talk about Al Sharpton, you could talk about Jesse Jackson, you could talk about Minister Farrakhan, all you want. You could talk about those guys. I understand, you know, some of the things that they've done, especially over the past, I'd say about 8 to 10 years. You have to look at them sideways a little bit. But I tell you what, they weren't doing the electric slide with their enemies. I can tell you that. It is beyond embarrassing. It is downright disgraceful. They deserve a foot in their behind. It is ridiculous. I mean, I tell you what, Malcolm and Martin weren't doing the cha-cha-cha with Governor Wallace. I can guarantee you that. Or Lyndon Baines Johnson. I mean, my goodness. I mean, it's like they're on Showtime at the Apollo. I mean, you got one woman, she thinks she's Megan Thee Stallion or Cardi B or Nicki Minaj. I mean, they're downright stupid out here. And then when you see the It's Raining Men part of the program, they want to be all over the place talking about it. Listen, it's Black Lives Matter. It ain't Black Trans Lives Matter. It's either Black Lives Matter or it doesn't. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, now if you want to be part of the Black Lives Matter movement, that's one thing. But then when you're gonna offshoot and talk about, oh, it's Black gay lives or black trans. Listen, that's no better than the people saying all lives matter, which we already know is a farce. See, I'm too easy to get sidetracked sometimes. But we have to bring up the same way we are marching for that. We should be marching for reparations each and every time. And there is no real conscious community. It is very sad. Whereas the conscious community, you know where they're at? They're indoors smoking a blunt. They probably got a bottle of right now they're broke right now. They don't already went through their stimulus money. So they probably got a bag of Reggie right now, well, a bottle of E&J, because they can't afford Hennessy anymore because they're not working. They're trying to scam somebody else out of their money. And then they're talking about, oh man, I'm not really trying to do too much. That's what they're doing. They're not doing a darn thing. Or they're talking about, Caesar Borgia, because we already know that's not Jesus in those pictures. I mean, the guy that they're praying to looks like one of these guys out here in the West Village with a needle in their arm. That is not the Christ of the Bible. But when you tell them that, then they want to bring up other gods and other doctrines. I mean, right now, it's really not about it should not ever be about any type of religion. What it should be about is the freedom of our people getting our freedom and getting our equal rights. And while we're at it, not only should we talk about reparations, and I did unfortunately leave that out of my original take, but let's not forget that we are still listed as 3/5 of a human in the Constitution. Now, if these so-called politicians and so-called senators, so-called governors, and so-called businesses are truly about Black lives mattering, then a Black life should be equal to every other life, and we should not be listed as 3/5 of a human still in the United States Constitution. That is an absolute disgrace. Listen, I understand that we are prisoners of war, but by definition, since we are citizens of the United States, we should be treated as such. We should not be listed still in 2020 as 3/5 of a human. Now, they've had all types of garbage amendments to it and the Civil Rights Act, which can be repealed at any time, by the way. That's all it is an act. Why not just do what needs to be done and just rip out that part of the Constitution? It's quite simple. But of course, they're going to give you every excuse as to why they can't or won't do it. I won't even say can't do it. They just won't do it. They're so arrogant, they figure, listen, we give them any type of BS excuse, our people will go for it. And unfortunately, some of our people do. And then when you hear certain clowns like Candace, a.k.a. Coon Dance Owens, and Dr. Uncle Ben Carson, and I like to call these people educated fools, because they could have all the bachelor's and master's degrees. And the sad part is, especially when it comes to the case of Dr. Ben Carson, who was a great neurosurgeon, a wonderful neurosurgeon. I mean, no matter how you feel about him, you cannot deny the fact that he is a brilliant, brilliant heart surgeon. I said neurosurgeon. I apologize. That was a misspeak. I apologize for that. Of course, we listen. You know what this Constitution was written for: landowning, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant people from England. That's all it was about. It wasn't even about their women because they treated their own women like chattel. And that is why those same women went 68% for the orange face one that they have in the White House right now. But the fact of the matter is people like Kuhn Dan Sowens and Dr. Ben Carson, when they spit the garbage rhetoric that they spit, I mean, look at the way that Ms. Owens disrespected George Floyd and disrespected all of our people, talking about they every time a black person gets shot by a cop, they act like chimpanzees. I mean, how disgusting. And mind you, this same woman only got her money because she's sued. What an absolute phony she is. And Ben Carson, for him to say that we need to get over slavery. You know what? I want one time to hear somebody say to another race of people, let's tell the Jewish community, you guys need to get over the Holocaust. I mean, that's been so many years ago. That is disgraceful. It is disgusting. I wouldn't ask them to get over that the same way I would never tell our people to get over slavery. The problem is we've never dealt with slavery as a country anyway. And we already know part of that is because they don't want to admit their guilt. They're trying to still wash their hands clean of their original sin. And that's why they won't give us reparations. But when you hear people similar to a Kuhn Dan Owens, when you hear people like your so-called first black president, Barack Obama, who was given to us by people like Oprah Winfrey, and we already know how Oprah Winfrey gets down. All you have to do is ask the Jackson family how she treated them. Well, of course, they are absolutely racist. Oh, no, they will not tell the so-called Jewish people to get over the Holocaust, and they shouldn't they should not get over the Holocaust. Yeah, you're right. Listen, Ben Carson's not about cutting the check. None of these guys. I mean, when you have a black president who served 2 different terms and said that he wouldn't even speak on reparations, that lets you know whose side he's on, and it wasn't ours. And then has the nerve to get on the television and talk about, well, Juneteenth is not just about this. It's about, you don't know a darn thing about it. Why don't you just go over there with Michelle and keep your mouth shut? When you had a chance to do something, you did absolutely nothing. I do not want to hear from you now. So-called black president. The absolute clown. I'm trying to keep this as PG-13 as I possibly can. And trust me, there will be an I Don't Give a live stream coming down the pike sometime next week. But I wanted to keep this as classy as possible because to me, this particular subject deserves my best behavior, so to speak, because I want to make sure that everything is clear and precise and to the point. When people like this say that we don't need reparations, anybody that says that, I don't know if they do realize it or not, but the fact of the matter is, whenever a black person says we don't need our reparations, they are disrespecting the very ancestors that we have come from. They are disrespecting all of the bloodshed, all of the free labor, all of the work that they did to build this country, and said that, you know what, it's fine. It's all right that you mistreated us for hundreds of years here in this country. And when they say, oh, you're just looking for a handout, no, it is not a handout. It is services rendered. This has been owed to us. The same way certain things have been willed down from generation to generation, we have been owed 40 acres and a mule since 1865. That is absolutely ridiculous. Well, I know what you're saying, black man or black woman with a white agenda. There is that. That is the absolute truth, and it's sad because there are so many of them like this. I mean, look at the Oprah Winfrey's of the world. I mean, look at the Kundance Owenses. I mean, there are so many examples of this. I mean, I can't think of the clown, the Republican. I cannot think of his name. I hate that when my mind sometimes runs a blank. He had the nerve to say we don't need Are you serious? I tell you what, you don't need reparations. I'll take your share, you stupid bastard. How about that? I'll make sure. It is so ridiculous. Well, let's face it, the American dollar has not been the same since it's been off the gold standard. No, it's not just Jesse Lee Peterson. I know who he is. He's not a politician, but there's a certain Republican. He's a congressman. I cannot think of his name, and he had the nerve to say that we don't need reparations as a people. I mean, he's obviously speaking for himself and people like him, but he does not speak for the whole of Black America. He can't. Now, all these so-called people who claim to be on the right side of Black Lives Matter, reparations has to be first and foremost because that has been owed to us. Now, Robert Johnson, the guy who used to own BET, sold it to Viacom years ago, said that's exactly who it was, Tim Scott. Thank you, Dale. I appreciate that. Yeah, Mr. Robert Johnson, excuse me, the old owner of BET, had put the number of reparations, the dollar amount at 14 trillion. Now that dollar amount they had also came up with, but that was back in 2015. We're here in 2020 now. I mean that's a lot more now. I mean I'm gonna be honest. To me, they didn't even add on interest. They didn't add on anything. It should be much more than 14 trillion. As far as I'm concerned, they should start off negotiating at no less than 100 trillion. No less than that. Me personally, I think it should be 500 trillion. That's me personally. And you can't say they wouldn't know how to divvy it up. The same way the IRS was able to pass out those stimulus checks and know who's who and what's what, they could do the same thing here as far as reparations is concerned. Because all you have to do is go and see who has been listing themselves as Black/African American over at least an 18-year span, and there you have it. And I'm not talking about Afro Latinos like I don't even want to say Fat Joe because see, I can't stand anybody who tries to be black when it's convenient for them. That drives me absolutely crazy. Oh no, 97 trillion, that's a start, but it should be in my estimation, it should be 500 trillion. But they should start at 100 trillion. That's when we should I wouldn't even listen to them. unless they started at 100 trillion. Because when you look at how much, not let's forget, not just the slave labor and building up an entire South. Remember, they built Wall Street, modern day Wall Street, off the backs of our labor as well. Do you know how many billions of dollars Wall Street has made off of our slave labor? In fact, I have it right here. Just a moment. You know, it's funny, and I looked at it right here. Cotton made New York City into a commercial and financial center, and New York's share, and mind you, this is not down south. New York's share of all cotton revenue was 40%. 40%. That is absolutely crazy. Excuse me, absolutely crazy. That New York City, this is not down south. 40% of its wealth came directly from slave labor. It is, yep, New York alone. New York City alone. And see, people sometimes forget that New York, everybody just thinks of New York State as New York City. There are so many different cities. New York City is actually, it's much closer to New Jersey than all of New York State. Because, when you're talking most of the state of New York, it's like Buffalo, Rochester, I guess Monticello, Westchester County is right above New York City, but most of the revenue from New York State obviously comes from New York City, because New York City, despite everything, and New York is not the same, trust me, but unfortunately or fortunately, it is the financial capital of the world, and that's why it was such a big deal when New York City got hit with COVID-19, because anybody that's from New York City knows, there is a reason it was called the city that never sleeps. Well, it slept for about 3.5 months, because this COVID-19, whether you want to call it a hoax, whether you want to call it fishy, and it is fishy, there's no doubt about it, but it definitely grinded this city into an absolute standstill. But let's face it, as I mentioned before, the reparations, they would have to start off at 100 trillion and go on from there. But when they talk about police reform and they're talking about defunding the police and other things of that nature, you notice no one has talked about retrying the officers that got off in the first place, who have been killing us without impunity. It's ridiculous. With impunity, excuse me. Yeah, cotton, tobacco, and spirits, no question about it. They've made, this country has made so much money off of our backs for so long, for free. All of the interest that has accumulated. There is no way that we should settle for anything less than 100 trillion. And the same way that they have overturned other convictions, they can overturn these acquittals of these cops. There is no way that Daniel Pantaleo, and listen, the fact that they only went after one in the Eric Gardner case was an absolute disgrace. There were 6 other people with him. All 7 of those people should have been charged. And he got acquitted. Yeah, he got fired, so what? I'm pretty sure he has a job with some private firm making much more money than he did as an NYPD officer. Because let's face it, the New York City police officer does not make that much money. And because of the sorry way that they've treated us as a people, there's no way I could be like, well, they deserve to make more money. Yeah, right. They don't deserve anything. Now, I can understand now, mind you, New York City's police force alone, $6 trillion. I mean $6 billion, excuse me. They don't need 6 billion. And they're only talking about taking $1 billion away and allocating that. They should take half of their funds away and allocate it into the communities of need. That's what should happen. I mean, if you want to build up the youth, that would be an easy way to do it. Because let's face it, they do have a lot of pork running around the NYPD. I mean, they have their spending habits are just as disgusting as the MTA, because there is not a more mismanaged organization than the MTA in New York State. It is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, they have blown away billions of dollars and they continue to get government funding, and it is an absolute disgrace. If America gave us our reparations and gave us that type of reform where all of the people who were acquitted were retried and given convictions of 20 years or more, then we would be able to say that these protests were worth it. But if we don't get any of those things done, then as far as I'm concerned, all of the marching, all of the protesting will be just like it was in the 60s, 70s. Up to now, it's been an absolute waste. Well, you know what? They should have thought about that when they pulled the trigger or had the knee on our necks. I don't care about their prison time or their loss of pension. They certainly do not care. Some of them, those guys who did what they did, those guys don't care about our lives. Why should we care about their livelihood after they murder our people? Because I certainly don't. They deserve to be, well, first of all, as far as I'm concerned, real justice would be they get arrested, they're in general population and not in protective custody. That should be first and foremost. You put them in the general population and have things play out how they're supposed to play out. And not only that, then you're saving the taxpayers the 3 hots in a cot and the price of a trial. So that's a 2-for-1 as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, put them in general population. And if you notice, one of the 4 officers in the George Floyd killing, they posted bail in their home. The fact that they were given bail is an absolute disgrace. Those 4 heathens should not have gotten bail. No way. And look at the Breonna Taylor case is even worse because they only fired one of the cops. And I believe there are about 3 of them. And they haven't arrested a cop yet. That is an absolute disgrace. That is a slap in the face of Miss Taylor's family and her life. And mind you, how they've tried to discredit George Floyd and the other young man from Atlanta who got killed. I cannot think of his name right now. Remember, Breonna Taylor was an EMT worker. So in essence, she was on the same team as they were. And they gunned her down and claimed it was a mistake. She didn't even get her mother didn't even get an apology. Not that that means a darn thing anyway. But it lets you know that in their eyes, our lives don't matter. And that is why we need to continue to march. They need to march through the whole thing. They need to march and see it through all of these. When they start going to court, they need to go through all of that. And I tell you what, they need to make sure that these people get either convicted or they don't even make it to trial. I mean, things do happen in jail. I'm not saying that, we all know, unfortunately or fortunately, things happen. But until those things are done, real reform, as far as the overturning of that and having these guys arrested and convicted for 25 plus years, nothing less than that will do. I don't want to hear that these punks got 10 years or a suspended sentence or an acquittal. Then you know what? People are not responsible for what happens there. And then they'll talk about, oh, these guys are looting and rioting. Well, you know what? It's a very simple. If you don't kill us in the streets, there is no looting. There is no rioting. There is no marching. There are no protests if we are treated fairly. This is exactly what you get. And if you remember, hey, listen, Malcolm has always said it best. The chickens have come home to roost, and they are coming home to roost once again, and in a much more violent manner here in 2020 than it was back in the 60s. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. And they should not stop. Don't stop until we receive our just due in reparations and real reform. I'd like to thank all of you for joining me this evening. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Please hit the like button, share, and subscribe. My name is Claude White. Take care, and God bless.